Welcome back to Movie Moshow. Today we are going to review the science fiction fantasy film, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. If you like our content, don't forget to like and subscribe. We post multiple times daily. Spoilers ahead. The malevolent wizard Mordred, Rob Knighton, who lived in the Dark Ages, desired enormous power by using dark magic. Riding on the backs of enormous war elephants, Mordred and his army travel to Camelot and begin destroying the kingdom of Britain. Eric Ban as King Uther Pendragon leads his own army in combat with Mordred's troops. With his powerful sword Excalibur in hand, Uther rides his horse to Mordred's fortress. Uther kills Mordred with a single swing, ending his reign of terror. A coup is soon launched against Uther and the kingdom by Uther's brother Vortigern, Jude Law. In order to take on a stronger form, Vortigern drags his wife Elsa, Katie McGrath, down into a hole where he kills her and spills her blood. As Vortigern's henchmen, the Blacklegs, close in on them, Uther manages to escape the castle with his wife Igraine, Poppy de Levange, and small son Arthur. Uther sends Igraine and Arthur to the docks while the bad guys start wreaking havoc around the kingdom. Igraine is killed as a person approaches the family and throws a spear at her. Young Arthur is moved to London, the nation's capital, where he is adopted and brought up in a brothel. As he gets older, Arthur spends his time on the streets where he gets into confrontations with people who bother him and gets into conflict with other kids. Arthur, who is now played by Charlie Hunnam, develops into a more confident adult who is friends with Percival, Craig McGinley, and Rubio, Freddie Fox. The prostitute Lucy, Nicola Wren, who was earlier attacked by a band of Vikings, is being cared for by Arthur. After Blacklegs raid the brothel, Arthur is subsequently asked to talk with a commander. Goosefat Bill Turner, Aidan Gillen, who had been living undercover, was exposed by Arthur after the Vikings had forced him to injure Lucy and forfeit his earnings. The commander informs Arthur that the king shielded the Vikings, hence Arthur is responsible for their mistreatment. Arthur is carried away and placed on a ship bound for the kingdom along with other men. To spite Arthur, the Blacklegs also murder Lucy in front of the other prostitutes. Speaking to the sirens who gave him his power after he killed Elsa, Vortigern converses with them. The sirens assure him that after he kills Arthur and gains control of the sword, he will succeed even though he does not yet possess all the power he seeks. The sword was discovered in a stone that was taken out of the ocean, Vortigern then learns. As they are forced to try to draw the blade out, hundreds of more men, including Arthur, are pushed forward to the stone. Arthur feels the blade slowly emerge from the stone as he exits. He experiences visionary flashes and a strong, overwhelming energy that knocks him out. In the prison of Vortigern, Arthur awakens. The king walks in and tells Arthur just how he felt. He describes to Arthur his father and how he learned to use the sword. However, Arthur must be dealt with since Vortigern wants to keep the power for himself. Sir Bedivere, Jimon Hunsu, a former commander of Uther, is greeted by the mage, Astrid Burgess Freesbay. To assist Arthur, Merlin dispatched her. Arthur receives a death sentence from Vortigern. Bedivere and his soldiers assist Arthur in escaping while the mage hides and summons hawks to attack Vortigern's men. Arthur makes an uneasy expression at Bill following their prior interaction when they carry him to their hiding place. Bedivere explains to Arthur that they need his assistance to defeat Vortigern, but Arthur declines. The others start to have second thoughts about his sword handling abilities. Although Arthur is aware that they want him to engage in combat, he first decides against it, that is, until he sucker punches Bill and tries to use Excalibur on his own. He just faints again as a result of this. Later, Bedivere explains to Arthur how Vortigern had collaborated with Mordred the entire time to make sure Vortigern would triumph in the end. The Mage Tower, which was originally Mordred's power source, is his ultimate objective, but if Vortigern succeeds in building it, he will be unbeatable. After Mordred gained control, Uther killed Mordred after obtaining Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake, Jackie Ainsley. Bedivere is advised by the mage to bring Arthur to the Blacklands, where Merlin destroyed Mordred's tower, so that he can practice using the sword. As he makes an effort to make the most of the blade, Arthur encounters a variety of monsters. George, Tom Wu, a rebel, offers him assistance. Arthur experiences a vision of the night his parents were killed as he struggles to understand the power of the sword. He observes Vortigern in his demonic knight form as he sent his son out and then fought Uther while tossing the spear at Igraine. Before Uther hurled his sword into the air and let it impale him, converting him into the stone that held Excalibur and causing him to sink to the bottom of the ocean, Vortigern had overcome him and was almost to strike a deadly blow. Arthur chooses to go murder Vortigern after realizing his father's sacrifice. To enlist their support in the fight against Vortigern, Arthur and the rebels intend to meet with barons from neighboring kingdoms. In order to convince the barons that he is a leader they can trust, Arthur assists in organizing meetings with them in the woods that feature staged skirmishes between his own soldiers. Maggie, Vortigern's maid, Annabel Wallace, is actually a Bedivere spy in the shadows. She lets the rebels know that Vortigern met with a Viking baron to discuss forming an alliance. When Vortigern gets to Londinium, the rebels want to launch an assault. The rebels hide in a tower as Bill keeps an eye on them until Vortigern and his troops show up. As he prepares his bow and arrow, Arthur informs him that Vortigern has instead sent a dummy. Bill continues to shoot his arrow, which sparks an assault. The rebels flee, although Backlack and Rubio suffer injuries as they flee. Lack tells them he will meet them in the safe house while staying behind. Rubio offers himself as a sacrifice so that Arthur and the others might scale a wall and enter George's school for refuge. When the Blacklegs attack the school, the rebels are forced to defend themselves. Arthur observes a Blackleg holding the mage at knife point. Arthur kills all of the Blacklegs with a single, powerful swing of the sword after being empowered by Excalibur's powers. That evening, while the rebels are holed up in a safe place, a state of chaos sweeps Londinium. Arriving with his kid Blue Landau, Rubio joins his buddies. Backlack had been followed by Greybeard, the general of Vortigern, Mikael Persbrandt, prompting the two bad guys to locate and question him. Blue returns for his father but, in order to keep them both safe, must deny knowing him. In order to verify Blue's account of events, Vortigern then proceeds to amputate one of Backlack's ears. Blue yells to get Vortigern to halt just before he abruptly ends it. Backlack confirms that he is the son, but Vortigern nevertheless lops off his ear. Arthur rushes in to rescue Blue after asking where he and the sword are located. Blue watches Vortigern kill his father as Arthur lifts him up, then Arthur drives away. Excalibur is thrown into the water by Arthur, who feels inadequate in front of his men. He strolls through the forest till the Lady of the Lake pulls him into a tiny pool. If Vortigern gains his ultimate power, she gives Arthur a vision of what will happen if he does not stop him. People would die and the kingdom will be destroyed. In order to meet with Bedivere, George, and Percival, Arthur returns. All of their friends and associates are dead when they return to their hiding place. Greybeard comes there to warn Arthur that Vortigern would kill both Blue and the mage if he doesn't give up by the end of the day. When Arthur travels to surrender himself and the sword to Vortigern, a deal is struck and the mage is freed. The mage summons a huge snake to enter and devour Greybeard and the other Blacklegs before anybody can attack Arthur. The rebels then travel to release the other prisoners of Vortigern before engaging the Blacklegs in combat. Knowing what's going to happen, Vortigern enters Katya's, Millie Brady, room, instructs the maidens to leave, gives her a big hug and tells her he loves her a lot, and then he kills her just like he murdered her mother. In order to sacrifice her and obtain back his demon warrior form, he drags her body into the pit. He challenges Arthur while bringing him to a foreign dimension. Although Arthur puts up a fair battle, Vortigern ultimately prevails. After that, Arthur observes Uther in his last moments, standing in front of his father. Uther advises Arthur that it is time for him to use Excalibur before he is struck by the sword. As the fight continues, Arthur reminds Vortigern that everything that has led up to this point has been made possible by Vortigern's own deeds, as those actions inspired Arthur to come fight. Arthur impales his scheming uncle and destroys Vortigern's blades. As the mage tower comes crashing down, Arthur departs from Vortigern. Arthur is shown building the round table some time later. While maintaining Bedivere and Bill in his inner group, he knights George and Percival. In order to prevent more disputes, Arthur also severs connections with the Viking nobleman and his warriors. Before the new monarch, the Vikings respectfully bow to him. After then, Arthur is given his crown before facing his country. Thank you for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe.